I request Shri Arun Jaitley, the Honorable Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, to deliver the convocation address.
Mrs. Savitri Gendell, the chairperson of the Gendell Group, Mr. Naveen Gendell, Ms. Kiran Shaw Majumdar, Professor Rajkumar, Professor Murthy, members of the teaching faculty of the Opie Gendell Global University, students, ladies and gentlemen. Let me at the very outset express my gratitude to Professor Rajkumar and his colleagues for having invited me to be a part of this convocation of a very valuable institution which has been built up in the last few years. Naveen mentioned that this is his father's 87th birth anniversary. Mr. Opie Gendell was a multifaceted individual. Essentially a businessman, but I think he also realized that businesses alone don't shape the destiny of a nation. Policy and direction do. And in matters of policy and direction, it is legislative politics which actually has a lot of impact. And therefore he deviated from the conventional course of only doing business and making money, and had a political identity for himself parallelly. And even as a politician and a businessman who wore different hats, a philanthropist, I think he also loved battles and excelled many a times in confrontations. And that is how he built up such a large group and left a great legacy. I am delighted at the fact that Naveen found this as an appropriate cause to establish a university in his memory. Establishing such great institutions, I think, is writing a fresh script for history. And particularly when future histories are going to be written years and years away. If we look at the very size of India, we are one country in the world which is still not being able to stabilize its population. We are still growing. And we are missing our population stabilization targets. This is not happening in other parts of the world. For various reasons, social and economic, particularly family, their populations, let alone being controlled, in most developed parts of the world are actually reducing. And if we look at which way the world will look decades downwards, with global integration, the world will need more hands and more minds to manage its affairs, particularly its economic interests. We have a lot of surplus population working in agriculture. But one of our main strengths has been our services. And therefore, even when we strive to increase the size of our manufacturing, Services continues to remain the main strength, in fact, of the Indian economy. And for this, not only to manage our own affairs, but also in terms of the demographic differential which is taking place across the world. While we are increasing in numbers, the others are reducing. Human resource becomes a very important economic resource. And to shape these minds, make them globally competitive, make them true global citizens, you need institutions of excellence. The regulated economy commanded that it was only the responsibility of the state to charge higher rates of taxation, and then governments had to establish institutions. Some of them, of course, were very good. Many were average. But the resource of the government itself was limited. And once we opened up, and we opened up with the idea that the private sector, not only philanthropic social organizations, but also businesses, would establish educational institutions. We've had schools of global quality, global competitiveness which have come up. We've had in the last 2 to 3 decades a whole list of private educational institutions have come up. It's often suggested that many would not be up to the mark. That also may be true. But in the years to come, those who don't fare well by the best competitive standards will always fall by the wayside, and the best will survive. These institutions and universities also have another advantage. They are not bound by government structures. They have the capacity to attract the best teaching staff globally. And eventually, any institution, besides its infrastructure, is also judged by the quality of its teaching. And if you look at the best of universities internationally, they have legendary teachers and professors. They have no retirement ages. They produce the best minds. And their alumni speaks of their excellence itself. The Jindal Global University, I have no doubt, is certainly going to be one of such institutions. I had in this year's budget speech mentioned that even though numerically we have a large number of higher educational institutions, but none of them emerge in the global ratings. And therefore, I had said that we must now concentrate in the next few years on at least 20 of them, 10 run by the state and 10 by the private sector. Select the 20 and upgrade them so that they can become world global institutions itself. You are now a part of that competitiveness where you have to strive to come within the category of those top 10, which then acquire those global rankings. You're working in a field, particularly of legal education, where you're also in active competition, whether it's business or law. And I'm sure competition will be able to bring out the best in you. Today, as one of the key batches, this is your 8th convocation, passes out from this university, I think you pass out with a great sense of responsibility. Some of you may go into higher education, and others may opt for careers. For those who are going to initiate their careers now, let me just give them a piece of advice that the world now has started respecting talent, brilliance than ever before. In every profession virtually, be it academics, be it law, be it the CEOs, be it the medical profession, the days of achieving excellence when you are in your 50s and 60s is over. The brightest achieve a level of excellence when they are in their 30s. And that's why they say we are no longer in a world of grey eminence. In any society, you'll find a lot of crowding. People with degrees from reputed institutions, and there will be a large crowd at the bottom of any pyramid. But that space for excellence on top is always vacant. There's always space in it. And those of you who embark on your careers now will have to realize that the world now has much higher levels of excellence than it ever had before. The world respects excellence than ever before. Mediocrity is also a part of that crowd at the bottom. And those who are able to think out of the box, innovate, come out with ideas, in almost every field, the disruptionists are now being respected because they break away from the settled path, innovate and create new ideas. There's resistance to those ideas, but eventually the few who succeed leave their footprints behind. And therefore those who earlier on in their careers put in that little hard work, become out of the ordinary, they have an opportunity to get on to the fast track. And those who in the initial stages of their career get on to that fast track will always remain on the fast track. And these are those people who in their 30s achieve levels of excellence. As business leaders, they'll become CEOs at that age. As counsels, they'll become top senior counsels at that age. As academics, they will become professors, not at the age of 50, but probably at the age of 33. And that's an opportunity which the competitive world provides. The kind of courses that your university is offering, from liberal arts to businesses to law, I think many of them are such which are today being impacted singularly by two factors: the nature of the economy and the way it's changing, as also the impact of technology. Look at the discipline to which I belong, and I'm sure many of you belong to that discipline, the discipline of law. When India became independent, most people were living in villages, there were small towns, a few large cities. There was huge housing shortage. And when I became a lawyer, the most sought after branch of law prevalent across the country, the largest number of cases used to be of landlords and tenants. And you had protection to be given to the tenants because the number of houses were few. Today, apartments all over the country are lying vacant, waiting for people to occupy. That branch has become irrelevant. Where have we transformed from in the last 3 to 4 decades? You've got into innovation. So anybody who specializes in the law of patents, he'll have to marry his ability in technology and law to be able to discuss and decide what the new innovations could be and how exclusivity and patenting could be granted to that. You have other branches of intellectual property law. When I started practicing, we used to read the monopolies, the MRTP law, the basis of which was, and if you look at the 1956 Industrial Policy Resolution, size was considered evil. So economies of scale was considered bad. And therefore, anybody who crosses a particular size, how do you stop him? That was the object of law and the economic system. All that has been dismantled. Today, with the virtues of global economy, large corporations, economies of scale, and if you look at how economies have prospered, Asia, along with Africa, was the backward region of the world till a few decades ago. In the first instance, Taiwan, then Japan, then Korea, subsequently China, hopefully next India, then demonstrated to the world that some of these countries in the first instance used technological innovations and connected their nations to the global markets. China used economies of scale and low-cost economies, manufacturing. And therefore, the various facets of trade arising out of international trade, joint ventures, investments, trade barriers, being WTO compliant. Now, all this has broken off, and we've seen it in the last 2 to 3 decades, the entire change suddenly come about. We used to be taught elementary lessons on where a cause of action arose in territorial jurisdictions. Now, when transactions are on the electronic mode, even those questions will become redundant. And so too in businesses. It's going to be a greater battle of ideas. If you look at the world of business, my favorite illustration is, if you pick up and prepare a list of the top 25 business houses in India before 1991, and you prepared a list of the 25 largest business houses in 2016, how many names are in common now? Those who had the blessings of the state in a license Raj regime were the ones who were a part of that 25 list. And those who innovated and emerged on their own caliber, who used the benefits of the free market, and who created ideas, are the ones who have now really emerged. The market which is willing to absorb you is also going to be very large. It's no longer the domestic market in India. It's a global market. And therefore, those who have the privilege of studying in institutions of this kind have been blessed with the best quality of staff which is internationally comparable. And therefore, our vision for future has to integrate us into that global vision. My own view is that India, because of conventional thinking, has occasionally lost the opportunity. We missed the bus when it came to the Industrial Revolution. The Americans and the Europeans grabbed that opportunity. When the technology revolution was taking place, we had missed the bus. When the world went on with the benefits of low-cost manufacturing, our laws and regulations were restrictive enough not to allow that. We again missed an opportunity. And I think history never gives us so many opportunities over and over again. This is probably one of the final opportunities which has come India's way. And that final opportunity is, today what is visible is only a few indications of that. The whole world is in a slowdown mode. If a country is growing by 1.5 to 2%, those countries have a sense of satisfaction that we are not in the negative frame. Countries are resorting to desperate measures. Negative interest rates, negligible interest rates, competitive devaluation of economies, of currencies, because they want to grow. Many are in a deacceleration mode, some are in an extremely slowdown mode. Job losses are taking place. Some other parts of the world are affected by geopolitical factors, the refugees, terrorism. India, of course, is defying that trend. And while we are defying that trend, for the first time in history, we are coming out much better than the rest of the world, having missed so many historical opportunities. And I think one of the credits for this and change in thinking, change in policy, I think what's important, what Naveen mentioned just now, is not the passage of the GST bill. Both two landmark legislation passed back to back, the bankruptcy and the GST, have been passed unanimously. I think that's more important. And one of the factors why these laws have been passed unanimously is that there is a very strong public opinion which has been inflicted upon the politicians that we don't want you now to go slow and waste this opportunity. And this opportunity is available to us in various fields. And I think I always say that when I visit universities, I come back with a great sense of enthusiasm. And I hope I can maintain that same level of enthusiasm when I'm talking to my other colleagues in public life. That's a changing India. And this change is evident not only in the big cities and the big institutions, it's also now evident, thanks to the social media and other factors, in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. People are becoming more aspirational, they are becoming more ambitious, they are asking more difficult questions. What background you came from is not relevant. And these are the great advantages of a liberal economic environment in the country, where the best manage to survive. And therefore, this is a great opportunity for all those who pass out today with degrees in their hands and embark upon a career. There is a vacant fast track, and there is it's like when you watch the last week of the Olympics, which are on, and you'll see the athletic events in the long distance race. The winner is ahead by a mile from the others. His speed is extraordinary. That's the point which is Waken. And I'm sure you'll all strive to occupy that position. My best wishes to you and to the university.
I now request Mr. Naveen Jindal, the founding Chancellor of Opie Gendell Global University, to present a memento to our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Arun Jaitley. I now request Professor C. Rajkumar, the founding Vice Chancellor of Opie Gendell Global University, to present the memento to our guest of honor, Ms. Kiran Majumdar Shaw. Thank you. We thank Shri Arun Jaitley, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Government of India, for delivering the convocation address. We also thank Ms. Kiran Majumdar Shaw, Chairperson and Managing Director, Biocon Limited, for delivering the special address. They have to now leave in order to attend other pressing engagements. I request all the members of the audience to remain seated for the remaining part of the convocation program. Please give them a generous round of applause for gracing this occasion.